You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to an episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, huge shout out to our sponsors. The Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. So a huge shout out to Governor Anatoby for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my two pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. So go to thedoghouseokc.com and follow them on Instagram at thedoghouseokc, and hopefully our pups will run into each other. What's up, guys? Welcome back to an episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. Down at Rose Rapids, Taylor's on the ones and twos. That's why we sound amazing and look great. I'm excited to dive into our story today. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce our guest, Mr. Michael Horton, huge OU fan, huge OU alumni, oil and gas executive, I guess, entrepreneur. We could say something like that. Excited to dive into the story. I mean, we chatted a little bit before this, and obviously from Southern Oklahoma and got strong roots down there. I guess we'll start with, why oil and gas?
Goodness. I grew up around it. My granddad was a driller and a tool pusher, and so was my uncle. And they went all over the world with that. The Noble family. There was Ardmore's old oil town, and knowing some of those old oil families, got me interested in it. Some really good people in my life for sure. And then when I got to OU, I had way too much fun at first, and as I got more serious, I was lucky enough to stumble into energy management and have some really good friends. One of my best friends, Joey Stauffer, was the first to make the jump into land management, and I went and talked to him and really fell in love with it. Thought it was a good fit for me. So it was really lucky timing wise. Shale boom started right when I was getting out of school.
So growing up Ardmore, around a lot of oil families, did you have a big family?
I do. I've got a very unique, interesting family, colorful, I would say. But they were not. My direct family is not an oil business. A lot of school teachers, and my mom was a school teacher, artist. My uncle's a school teacher and artist. My grandma was a school teacher and a basketball coach. And my dad's side, is where I get my Indian heritage. And my dad is an electrician by training, but he's an entrepreneur at heart.
So what tribes your dad and an Indian side from?
Yeah, Choctaw.
I've had Chief Gary Batten on the podcast. It was great.
Yeah.
He told some great stories about him racing cars back in the day, which was awesome. Drag racing cars when he was young.
He's a stud. The tribes have had... Yeah, the Chickasaws, Choctaws certainly have a big impact on Oklahoma and Southern Oklahoma in particular.
Yeah.
And have a lot of respect for it. It's interesting that I'm only a 16th, but the Indian blood showed up in me a lot, and my dad identifies as Indian, which is a funny thing, especially like being in Denver, like people identifying as stuff that they aren't. But, I get it. Like I identify as Indian, I identify as Choctaw, I'm a card carrier, but some people certainly see hypocrisy in that, but you know what, I don't care.
You have the bloodline to prove it. Like it is what it is, right? Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I'm the oldest of three. All three are characters. And my sister's here in Edmond, and she married an engineer, great guy. I have three wonderful children that I love very dearly. And my brother walked a hard path in life. Addiction has really shaped my family, and my brother really struggled with those demons. But he's been sober for 6 years, spent some time in prison. Prison saved his life. And he's met a wonderful woman. He's got 2 stepchildren that he raises as his own, and they just had another daughter. He's in his second year of his plumbing apprenticeship. He's a union guy, and he's just, he's worked the 12 steps. He's found Jesus, and goodness, yeah,
That's really cool. Yeah. And I mean, it could have been a lot worse, right?
Well,
And you think at the end of your life you're going to prison, but it actually saved his life.
Yeah, it was horrible. I didn't talk to him for 5 years. Yeah.
You guys come from a big religious family?
Yes, on my mom's side.
Okay.
Yeah, my dad somewhat has come to faith. I'm not sure where he stands with it today.
Yeah.
He got baptized a few years ago, but I'm not sure how much he's stuck with it. But yeah, I grew up in the Church of Christ, which is like the church from Footloose. It was a great church. We had a really cool preacher that was amazing. And he was a guy named Virgil Trout, best speaker to this day. I've still been around and learned a lot from him. He was he's a father figure in my life for sure.
So growing up in Ardmore, running around, parents are in education, dad's a bit of an entrepreneurial, has the electrician side of things. But you see this oil and gas arena out there. They're like, I want to go be part of that. I don't want to go teach. I want to go be an electrician, work for myself. I want to go to university. Why OU?
I just sort of fell into it. Okay. There was sort of three rules in Southern Oklahoma. Man, you can work, you can play sports, or you can go to school. And those were the rules at my house. And as soon as I figured out I could work for other people and not just my dad, I really took advantage of that. And so I worked with a lot of different cool people. I mean, I had a snow cone stand when I was like 10. My dad was absolutely fearless. He had many different businesses. We had a video store. And so I worked in the video store. He insisted on renting adult movies. We had a little red room. And so you can imagine what that was like being a kid.
The characters that are coming in to rent those movies.
Oh, yeah.
People around, it's a small town. You probably know everybody.
Oh, it's a small town. And so you get that, you're that guy. You're that guy that rents adult videos. And then I'm also the guy that goes to the Church of Christ. And so, you have to deal with that. And that's really hard to deal with at that age. Honestly, probably something I'm still unpacking.
Yeah.
He also owned some laundromats. Again, he was just absolutely fearless. He see the opportunity to go for it.
Yeah.
And so, we really grew up working. I knew how to work. When I got to OU, the thing that really threw me off is I spent a summer farming and getting up early, and I enjoyed it. And so I made the mistake of planning all early classes. And then I got to OU, and it was like super fun.
Yeah.
And then I just didn't go to my classes. And so damn near flunked out as a freshman and was pretty lost. Didn't find oil and didn't, really have the direction and focus I needed until really my sophomore, junior year. And then when I found it, I poured myself into it.
Yeah. You hold on to it and you find out what excites you. And then you think, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I just had a lot of reps of, watching, business. And then I've always loved real estate from my mom. I'm super creative, like art and architecture, like some of my true passions. Land management was a really good fit. Yeah. After, I started getting internships, and then I started finding, some really great mentors, I would say, for anybody. And certainly the work I do now, I do a lot of mentoring. And with my church, with Soul Mission, and with the Price School of Business. But mentorship's where it's all about. Yeah,
and you look back at your parents, and you have this perfect blend of your dad's fearless. He's opening multiple businesses. He has the entrepreneur side of him, the gene in him there. And then you have your mom's creativity and the artist. Because in the majority of the world, when you're an artist and your creativity, you don't have the business side, right? And you've had the blend of learning both right in front of you.
Yeah. It's anytime you're creative, you're also easily sort of dismissed. You have a hard time collecting your thoughts. I mean, there's a curse. It's a bless. That's like when you figure out life. It's like everything has a dual side. Any sort of gift is also a curse. Your strengths are also your weaknesses. But yeah, man, I hear you.
Yeah,
I hear you.
You mentioned education, sports, and business. You're a pretty athletic guy. Was there any sports as a young age that pulled you away from wanting to follow the old world or go to OU or be in the business world?
It's such a meathead thing to say, but lifting weights, honestly, has been my favorite sport ever. it really changed my life for the positive. Like anybody in, Southern Oklahoma, man, you get picked on a bit. Like
Sure.
you get toughened up. And then when I started growing and I went from being, fairly fast and to really slow. And so, man, lifting weights, really helped change my body and made me where, I was, able to get better at sports, which is awesome. It's just the great thing about lifting weights, man. It's like it pays dividends. It shows up. It still shows up in my life and in discipline and strength. Yeah, I think it's a special thing.
Are you in the gym with buddies? You go with a crew, or you just like, would you rather have your headphones in, zone out? Is your place of like peace?
Yeah, I'm pretty reclusive and I'm a natural introvert. I try to do anything I can to trick myself to go into the gym.
Yeah.
So I've had some great workout partners in my life and that, super thankful for. I would love to find one. There's a lot more, Christians that are, doing this and partnering. But no, I've been working out with the same trainer for several years, which is another trick. If
Accountability.
if I put a little more skin in the game, maybe I'll go.
Yeah. So back to OU, your sort of sophomore, junior year, you really figure out, you do some internships, find some mentors, and dive into the land management side.
Yeah, I hit a switch.
Yeah, you mentioned that the industry and the economy was good at that time too. What were those internships like? Where did you go? Did you travel much, or were they mostly in Oklahoma?
Man, I had the best one ever. I went to, so we didn't have insurance growing up, and I wanted stability, which I was absolutely nuts to choose the oil business. That's what I wanted. Yeah. And so, I was super attracted to at that time, it was like Exxon, Walmart. Those were the two best businesses I'd ever seen. And they still kind of are. But I wanted to go to work for Exxon, and I got a chance to go to New Orleans with them and had one of the best summers a 21-year-old could ever have. Right in the city, we sublet some Tulane students. My mentor was an OU guy named Jeff McDonald. I mean, this is 100 years ago, but just a very kind Christian man that knew what he was doing, was a player in the business. Exxon really took care of us. They had an intern program. It was only land guy, like business guys, mostly technical people. And so I got to go look at, upstream, downstream. We went to some refineries. They took us offshore, took us to a drill ship. Incredible experience. Had the opportunity to go back full time with them. But, the business had started to change. There was a company called Anadarko that was an absolute powerhouse. They were the Chesapeake. Before Chesapeake, there was a guy named Bob Allison that was running that company, and they were awesome. Anyway, I wanted to go work for them. I wanted to go to a place that was going to be more aggressive. And there was two OU guys that were at the top of the land management and food chain. Like OU's got the number one program, and I'm not saying that to denigrate. The other. There's only 3 or 4.
Yeah.
But they put out by far the most students. It's the oldest. And so in the land management, it's pretty much 1 degree of Oklahoma. So, there was some OU guys recruiting me, me and this other woman, she's Canadian, from the Canadian land management program, Alicia Dodge, still a dear friend of mine today. We were the first 2 at Anadarko. And got great experience there, and was there for 3 years. Moved all over the place. Was in Midland for 6 months. Absolutely loved it. Met the mother of my 2 children there, and who had a wonderful career there. But I was there 3 years, and then went to Samson, which is a Tulsa-based private company. It's gone now, but was there, 7-ish years.
What sparked the move to Samson?
Meeting my ex-wife, that was dating somebody at work was a lot. And then I just felt a draw to do something different. I loved my time at Anadarko. They were very engineering-centric. I wanted to go to a place that was going to be a little bit more aggressive. And I had met...
When you say aggressive, what do you mean by that?
That was going to be out buying shale aggressively, like Aubrey did.
Yeah. Okay.
So I met a guy, his name's Steve Stacy, and he was with Samson, and in Denver, and he called me up, and they recruited me pretty hard, and I loved the idea of being able to go to Denver and then being able to come home. Obviously, never did come home, but that's where that's what drew me to Samson, and I love the idea of going to a place that was going to be very aggressive.
Yeah. And you just there, you said 7 years you were there?
Yeah, so it was an amazing company. Stacy Schusterman is one of the biggest ballers ever. Like, we built up and sold that company for $7.2 billion to KKR, and I bet it was worth $4 billion. It's the biggest flip I've ever been a part of. Was an amazing deal, amazing company, very, very well ran. I learned a ton. You know, it wasn't around Stacy but a few times, but her right hand, a guy named Dave Adams, was a wonderful friend and mentor. There's just so many there. Like I said, Steve is he's like a father figure to me still. He's one of my best friends. That Denver office was special. Had a lot of really good people. A lot of those people then went to Felix.
Okay. Is that who bought Samson?
No, so KKR.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah. So Felix was next.
Yeah. So KKR was like they're like the biggest private equity guys ever. They're like the barbarians at the gate. They're the Nabisco story. And then you had these Okies that just freaking fleeced them.
Yeah.
And like killed them. I mean, I still think it's the largest leveraged, private buyout of an oil company. And yeah, Stacy Samson just ran circles around all these New York bankers.
And you're late 20s at this point, kind of maybe early 30s?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
so career. I stayed a year.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer, like, you make money on the buy, and they way overpaid. And then everybody that really cared about me was fired. And then so I was sort of maybe the last time I was really nervous. I don't do stuff like this very much, but they fire everybody. And then they asked me to give the Christmas speech to people I know and to try to honor the people that weren't there. Yeah, it was it's pretty interesting day. And you just kind of hope you find the right words. You know, time of healing, it was really hard for me to leave. You know, again, you're talking about mentorship. I try to surround myself with great people. Have been very blessed in my life to do that. And I really had some great people that I was really hard for me to leave. But, and I'm a guy that struggles to stay in his lane. So I'm a acquired taste. I would say people either tend to really like me or they really don't. So at that point in Samson, I wasn't the most well-loved amongst management. And so I needed to leave. It was time for me to leave.
Sure. When you're there, and they sell, do you have equity at that point?
Yeah. So we had these like restricted stock.
Yeah.
You know, I made, for me, you know, with the sell, I made, you know, life-changing money. Now, it wasn't, you know, I've not ever really talked about it publicly, but I was able to build a house with it.
As a 30-year-old, some young 30s, like, it's a good chunk of money that's life-changing.
Well, I was able to, like, have a house that I owned outright.
Awesome. My,
you know, ex-wife and I, and that was the most comfortable financially I've ever felt. Things were pretty simple and, you know, was just hugely blessed.
Was that your first taste of what it looks like to be a part of something that's then sold and flipped, that like gives you a little bit of, ooh, there's something there, I want to go do more? And like you just said, you make money on the buy. Does that then trigger your career in a way that you're looking and trying to build ways to buy and create companies and flip companies going forward?
Well, I'd always been interested in that. Okay. And I'm a big believer in the side hustle. And I didn't really talk about that, but I started buying houses and doing real estate was really my only hobby for most of the time. And so I was, you know, trying to build up, you know, a portfolio of rentals. But then I just got to where I'd flip. I'd either do giant projects or buy stuff with bad foundations and stuff that was not well presented. And then I started building a lot of houses. So I'd do 1 or 2 houses a year. And so I was feeling that I was scratching that creative itch, but I was also flipping. But I was very scared. You know, my dad, there was always food on the table, but we were up and down. And so I have always had a scarcity mentality. And so I stayed corporate way longer than I probably should have.
Sure.
Because I didn't want to give up insurance and I was scared.
Yeah, I mean, those are that's ingrained in you from a young age, right? Whether it's, you know, maybe it wasn't voiced to you as a kid around your parents, but you see it. And obviously dad's entrepreneurial said there's always food on the table, but the older you get, the more you understand it as a kid and you're seeing things.
Totally.
So you said you go to Felix. Are you in Denver then full time at this point?
Yeah,
Okay.
so I've been in Denver pretty much for 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I spent 3 years in Houston after college and have been in Denver ever since. Yeah, so I started looking around, had a couple different conversations that were interesting. I was at a pretty good point in my career. I had 10 years experience. I had worked on some interesting teams and been with some good companies. And so it's a little dangerous, you know. One of my best friends, a guy named Mike Schween, another OU guy, he called me. He knew I was looking. He was the land manager at EOG in Denver. EOG's probably the best ran shale company ever. They're still kind of the gold standard. But anyway, Mike was a stud, and he knew I was looking. And he's like, hey, there's this guy, Sky Callentine. He's raised a bunch of money. He's started a thing called Felix. You should talk to him. And Sky was trying to get Mike. And Sky had originally hired a guy named Greg Ramsey who worked for Aubrey, and who you should have on the show. His voice is like so good. Greg's a stud, and then he decided he didn't want to move. And so Sky was looking for somebody, and he had a handful of other people signed up. And we sat down and talked for 2 hours, and I knew like he was who I wanted to hitch my wagon to. And so I came on as his VP of land, and then we had a magical 7 years together where we built up and sold 2 multi-billion-dollar businesses from a standing start. And he just was, Sky is like, I've not been around Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, but Sky is of that ilk. Like, he is a true visionary, true Renaissance guy. He could do my job very well. He could do geology very well. He could do engineering very well. Just was and is very, very, very talented.
Yeah, and up until this point, you got to learn and be around a lot of impactful people, it sounds like.
Yeah, this is the first time, though, I got to like really work hand in hand with somebody.
Sure.
And then Sky's background, he had spent a better part of a decade with Aubrey. Sky's a bit of a machine. And he's a geophysicist by nature, which is random. And those guys typically don't get out of dark rooms. Like, they love this place. Yeah. And they're just mostly looking at seismic, like looking at images of the earth. And so Sky's geologic understanding was top tier, but Aubrey would put him in wherever he was spending the most money. And so Sky literally saw thousands and thousands of horizontal wells drilled. If you ever read the book Outliers, like, they talk about, Gates and Jobs, like, spending time in that Stanford lab, like, learning coding. Sky did the same thing. No one will ever see as many horizontal wells drilled as he did.
Yeah.
So the amount of reps he had was just astounding. And then he learned from Aubrey that, pace and go capture the flag. And he was just an absolute hawk on data. And so, man, we grinded it out. When we went somewhere, we went in a big way. So we looked at a bunch of different stuff. But quickly we honed in Oklahoma, and we actually did 2 projects. Most people don't know that, but we started competing with others in what ended up being called the stack play. And like Kingfish is, Canadian Kingfisher County is just north of Oklahoma City. Carchie is up there. Yeah, we went up there. I didn't, and the broker I started working with, a guy named Kyle Nevels, who's also awesome. When we started looking at this thing, he's like, I don't know that we put together 12,000 acres. And I wasn't even sure we could do that. But dude, we put together a land machine, all Okies. And the stories are legendary, but we did a couple hundred transactions. We put together 80,000 acres.
And they didn't think you get 12,000.
We didn't think we'd do 12.
Together.
Yeah, we put together 80,000 acres. unbelievable piece of land work that I was like really blessed to be involved with. It's just a really cool thing that our whole team did. Sky really built an awesome team. Our geologists, our engineers, everybody was top notch. But we built that up. We drilled about 50 horizontal wells, and it was the coolest project I've ever been involved with. And it was life changing. For a lot of Oklahoma, created a ton of wealth. And you can imagine how many landmen worked on it, how many people were flipping minerals.
Yeah.
We also started a mineral company, Sooner Trend, which was pretty cool. And then we were involved in the midstream as well.
Just what a time to be alive, I'm sure.
It was mind-boggling. We were spending so much money every day. Man, it was like being on in a rocket ship.
Yeah.
But to build that business from a standing start as quickly as we did was just, it was super cool, man.
And for people listening who aren't, obviously this is Oklahoma, so they're aware of oil and gas and the world, but the intricate details as far as going and like that whole 80,000 that you buy up and build up. Take me through a day of going to buy 150 acres. Like, how does that, like, for people listening, like, what does a typical day look like, or 1,000 acres? Like, what does that look like? Or did it look like?
Yeah, when I say we had a land machine, man, we had a land. It was a machine.
Yeah.
There was, things percolated up to me when there were problems. A few, people that, I had to work with or had got the opportunity to work with, that were a little more cantankerous or harder, or just wanted to talk to somebody at, directly at the company. We had about 20 people that were full-time, and we're super aligned on like mission, vision, values. We had to jump the market a few times, but, we bought that well. And when we sold it, there was a good return. But, we were paying fair prices. People knew we were honest. We worked really hard to close things quickly. We had great partners, good law firms. We tried to streamline the customer experience. Sky used to say all the time, there's two types of people. It's like those that like to look smart and those that like to make money. I'm certainly in making money. The looking smart thing and like talking over, people and like using confusing acronyms and all that. Like, I don't care for that. I really want to understand stuff. And so I ask a lot of questions. And so I seldomly look very smart. We just were very straightforward, very business-like. We had great partners. I had a wonderful team. And then my counterparts, like, they wanted to go with us because they knew that we were going to drill better wells. So people really worked hard. And then we were just absolutely relentless.
Getting to that moment where you're building that machine that's just synchronized every day, like you mentioned, mission, the values, everyone's aligned. That had to have felt, zen, place of like, I'm trying to relate it to when an athlete is just in that place, right? Obviously the Olympics are on at the moment, that total, and I hate the word flow state, but it's sort of where it's at. Things are probably happening so fast, but they're all happening in the right way. And then maybe you look back after it all ends and you're like, we did that, and have a time to just breathe.
Yeah.
And then reflect, which I'm kind of forcing you to do now, which is why I love the podcast, is I'm taking you back to that moment.
When you're in it, you're just kind of, you're just making sausage, right? Things feel a little bit messy, but man, there was so many times I worked with so many good people. Like there was one in particular, her name's Crystal Hank, and she was like a librarian at Samson. And she came with me, and I was honored for her to stay with me. She ran our administration, and she's just the coolest person I ever worked with. Best person I ever worked with. Just total ninja. Like, you just always in the background, always doing what needed to be done, and never making a fuss. Yeah, man, I reflect on it often. It was an amazing time. This is so audacious, but I watched the Bulls, the 7-year run that they had, and it reminded me so much of Felix. There's just, you have this sustained excellence. You have this sustained, we kind of dominated for 7 years. Certainly the two areas that we, Sac, Eastern Delaware for our second go round. But it was a very special time, and you had, I'm not sure who was who, Sky was just this absolutely brilliant player. In sports and stuff growing up, I was sort of the trash man. And then I literally was a trash man for 6 years from 12 to 18. I was like a, 12 to 15 rebound per game guy. I'd get more rebounds than points. For me, I just kind of felt like I did what needed to be done. And I had a lot of fun working with some fantastic people.
Yeah.
Our engineers, timing really worked well for us. Like frac innovation really came along. There's so many to name, but there's sort of 3 engineers in particular. A guy named Ben Jackson, still one of my best friends. A guy named Dan Gravy and a guy named Toby Dean. Toby's actually in DC now. But those 3 guys, and certainly Sky, Bill Arnold, really, really understood fracture simulations well and really designed them perfectly for the rock. They were obsessed with it. They're obsessed. And so that was a huge game changer for the industry and certainly for Felix.
Were you sad to see it come to an end, or was the timing right?
Man, after 7 years, it was like, again, yes, I was. The last year was tough. My first marriage was also 7 years, and the last year was tough. So it's funny how numbers like repeat themselves. And it was a divorce. Yeah. We talked about death, divorce, and it certainly like shaped my life. But yeah, I was sad. And I really had a hard time. Like I missed those folks. And then I wanted to kind of go up structure. I wanted to, Sky had a vision for himself and a board. And I wanted to stay with him. But unfortunately, we just weren't able to figure it out. And he was in a really tough position. Our organization was kind of held together by like duct tape and baling wire. And it needed to be blown up and he needed to start over. But there was a lot of collateral damage in that. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of good people that were caught in that. And it's divorce of any kind is hard.
How old are you when this happens?
The end of it was 2020, it's early 40s. I'm 47 now.
Still fresh. It's not that long ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's been 5 years since we all broke up. He went on, he's got a new team. He probably owns the minerals underneath these chairs. He's made a big position in Oklahoma. He hired one of my best friends to replace me. Parker Neal is super talented. We went to college together, and they continued to do it. They continue to do it well. And we kept some of the folks. But yeah, it's teams are different. It's not any different than any other team.
During all of this, I mean, obviously the kind of stories and everything we've talked about, there's plenty of factors that remain constant, and that's Oklahoma. That's obviously the industry that you're in, and the great people that you've worked with. A lot of them have come from here. A lot of them are lifelong friends. So you built friendships out of this. That's something that's something special, right? That's something that when, outside of business, when life isn't going great, you have mentors or friends to rely on and talk to. And, that's.
Yeah. I mean, Oklahoma's been a big throughput in my life. I can't tell you how many times I've been traveling abroad and I run into Oklahoma people. I mean, I've sold a couple $1 billion businesses, and how many Oklahoma people were in those rooms. And I have a house in Vail, and I'm on the board of Price College. And one of my best friends has started, I don't know, a couple hundred dental practices from McAllister. It's a real similar story to mine. And his kids are thinking about going to UT, and they're raised in Dallas, and they don't think OU's good enough school. And I told him, I was like, look, when I walk around my neighborhood in Vail, I see half a dozen OU flags. I ain't seen one Texas flag. And that's a true story.
Yeah.
Yeah. OU's a very special place, a very special school.
When do you make this? You mentioned you've got great mentors in your life, but you also mentioned that you like to mentor. When did that happen? When did you make that switch to now feeling like I am a mentor of people coming up? Now, obviously, being a price business is obviously, part of it, but when was that moment where you're like,
Yeah. So I would say, at OU in fraternity, it was like one of the first, not as formalized, but, that's where I started to learn it and see the value of it. My fraternity is just not even a fair experience. Like, you get to be around people that have done it well before you, and they tell you, like, these are the classes you should take. these are the majors you should consider. And then you're around their parents.
Yeah.
You know, I was lucky in that I was around some really great people that I'm still friends with today. My fraternity and certainly my friend group. And we have a group text called Safe Place. It's people that way outkicked their lot in life, you know, just disproportionately successful in business. And a lot of that was just learning, you know, power of network. Anybody that dismisses that is just full of shit. And so it's huge. Fraternity was huge. And then I was the recruitment chairman, and which was a good job for an introvert.
Yeah.
That got me sort of started in recruitment and then mentoring. I did recruiting for Anadarko like early. And so, you know, that sort of facilitated my growth, you know, cause you know, and then I also was asked, my boss, a guy named Todd Liebel, he was teaching a class at OU. And then he had some family stuff come up, and I had to teach a class, and I was, you know, super young, and that helped.
Yeah.
And then I was an intern coordinator, I think my second year for land, and my ex-wife was the intern coordinator for geology, and that was awesome. Yeah, that was an awesome experience. We obviously fell in love then, but I worked with some great people. You know, both who have done big things. One of them who I ended up taking to Felix.
Yeah. How do you spot talent?
Oh, I'm a collector of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a collector of people, and I like interesting people. I go deep. So I just recently got back in the old business. Our engineer is a guy I worked with 20 years ago. I loved the way he looked at the wells in a statistical fashion. He's very relentless in his thinking, and we just stayed in touch over the years. But I collect people. Yeah, it's
a great trait to have, right? And then, like you said, you're building relationships, and you stay. But the key is, especially with your engineers, you've stayed in touch. There's a factor there that's like, because that's hard. I think a lot of people find that really hard.
I'm horrible about staying in touch. You know, to me, it's like you go deep with somebody, you do something interesting with them, and you can pick it back up 5-10 years later. I just saw dear friend of mine from Continental, and I hadn't seen him in 10 years, but we know each other, and we did some cool stuff together, and you pick it back up.
Yeah. So you said recently got back in your business.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
He's trying to scratch the itch again?
Yeah, so I didn't talk about what towards the end of Felix 2, we didn't really talk about it, but it's a version of Felix 1, but it was just the same story repeated. It's just in West Texas. It took us less transactions.
Because there's more land available out there and nobody's out there?
No, we bought a deal.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess I'll tell that story real fast because it's kind of a funny story.
Yeah.
We bought a marketed deal from a company called Energen. They were based out of Alabama. A bank, I won't say the bank's name. They named this, you know, oil and gas would come up with code names for divestitures. So, you know, employees didn't get upset and all that stuff. And they try to keep it a secret. Everything's a secret in oil and gas.
Until the day it's sold.
Yeah. Their secret code name for this divestiture was Project Edge, which was the stupidest name ever. Like, it's like, you know, it's just like calling, you know, your studio like a and so they called it Project Edge. We went and bought it, and we saw value that others didn't see. Sky did. And so we bought it, and it was like 30,000 acres, and then we quickly put another 30 next to it. Built up and sold that business. Probably held it a year too long. Rare times Sky and I disagreed. I'm always a flipper. If someone's willing to pay me more than I think something's worth, pretty quick to sell it.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But towards the end of that, you know, I had been studying real estate, and I really liked the mobile home business and the RV business. And I started a company called Good Living, and it's a really good business, a really good idea. That sounds egotistical.
Big profits in mobile home parks.
Yeah, you know, it's
and not that much turnover.
Well,
right?
Man, there's been some terrible things said about it. The Waffle House comment, like there was this guy named Frank Rolfe said that you know, mobile home park is like a Waffle House, except the customers are chained to the booth. That's a terrible thing to say. That guy needs to go away. Like that, there's just no place for that. It's not true.
No.
The reason I liked it is like I grew up around it. And one of my best friends, a dude named Gary Hatter, his mom was awesome. She worked at the tire plant, rest in peace. It's a really sad business to see go in Ardmore. But she worked there, and then she also was a lunch lady at her school. She bought brand new double wide in this nice park in Plainview School District. Everything worked in their house, and it was so clean, and I loved it. The pickup basketball was great. My dad's an electrician, and so, you know, all electricity in our house was like a work in progress. So that brand new house, it was cool. It stuck with me. Yeah. I'm obsessed with factory built housing. That's a whole nother thing. And it's my dream to build to own a factory that makes houses.
Yeah. Like those, is it the blocks? What's the one that I've seen? I mean, there's a lot of now, but the main one, you order it, it's $25,000. It shows up on the back of a flatbed, and they just like unfold it and it's a block.
Yeah.
So Elon was living in.
If you haven't had Zach Punnett on, he's another fraternity brother of mine. He's done an interesting one with those. Boxable, I think is what it's called.
That's right, Boxable.
He did a project in Stillwater where you can rent them out. You should go. You should visit with Zach. He's a cool cat for sure. But that's a whole nother thing. When I started that business, I wanted to have it fully integrated. I wanted to buy parks. I wanted to build the houses, and I wanted to provide credit for them. And, Warren Buffett is the largest home builder in the United States. He owns Clayton Homes. They build 50,000 homes a year, and then they provide the credit for them. That credit is expensive and high friction, and I wanted to disrupt it all. The hardest thing when I switched industries is I just didn't have that Rolodex of people. Like in oil and gas, again, I've been collecting them. Yeah. If we were, drilling a well offshore, I knew people that did that well. Yeah. In the mobile home business, I just didn't have a Rolodex. So I had a really hard time staffing it. We did a joint venture, and it took us a while to get aligned. The guy I did the joint venture with he's of Sky and talent. Now, if you want to talk about mobile homes, like this dude, Ben Broadbrand, is so eloquent, so smart, but it took us a long time to get aligned. We like different markets. It's so cliche, but location. Yeah, right. He likes more tertiary markets and has been very successful doing it. But I like more, sexier markets. Yeah. So we're now that business. At one time we had almost 5,000 pads. First 18 months, it was a great opportunity to buy. We would buy distressed assets that were starved for capital. These were some of the most awful places you've seen on this earth. Yeah. Sad, prostitution, drugs. And we bought these things, and it took me longer than I thought it should, but we turned them around and really made some beautiful impact. We're down to 6. So first 18 months were awesome. Big private equity moved in, started buying everything. So there was no value, to where it made sense for us to continue. So we started selling to private equity, and it took us a while to finish it. We basically... The secret in that space is like there's been none of these things have been built since the 80s, and the new ones require more power. And so you basically have to redo electricity on every single one. Yeah. Man, so many lessons. Hardest thing I've ever done in business. Yeah. Was
of all the things you've done up to this point, that was the hardest thing
hardest thing I've ever done.
Wow.
Yeah, people hate it.
Yeah.
People don't want those parks next to them.
It was a people thing versus a business thing there, because the business obviously makes sense and the numbers make sense to you, but the people, the intangible part of it is
is the hardest.
Makes it difficult.
Yeah, but they were also the best people I've worked with.
Yeah.
And our maintenance people now in Phoenix, they're recovering meth addicts, and they've been off meth for 6 years. They literally rode their bikes from Kentucky to Arizona.
Wow.
And they just bought their own RV.
Yeah.
That we finance for them, and their brother and sister, and they live together.
Yeah.
And they're like some of the best people, best story I've ever been a part of. Yeah. These parks, when they work well, they have like a manager, or it's like a mayor.
Sure.
And the mayor, just sort of holds court. it's a fascinating world. You should see like good living communities.
Mhm.
You should look at some of our stuff. It's cool. Yeah, they all have a similar vibe.
Yeah.
And most of what we own now all of it's really in the Phoenix area. At one time, and I think this is so cool as a land guy. You know, I owned 100 acres in Phoenix.
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet. But these parks, you know, are very safe. You know, I've found people that know, like, that grew up in it and they know how to deal with it. There's some dogs. Like, I like dogs.
You could make probably a reality TV show out of like some of the things that you've seen or some of the park, but like this whole park ecosystem, right?
Dude, my life is kind of a reality TV show.
Yeah.
I just don't choose to. I would never want it to be. You know, it's funny. One of my people was on a reality TV show here recently.
Yeah.
That was a land person at Felix.
No, it wasn't Landman, was it?
No, she was on. It was like called I don't remember. And Blind.
Okay, Love is Blind.
Love is Blind. Yeah. I actually just ran into her, but yeah, she's Sparkle Megan.
That's
and
funny.
one of the best people I ever worked with.
Yeah. There's something, after listening to you talk, there is something in you that really cares. You mentioned the mobile home thing about that experience of your friend's mom and working hard and having her and everything worked it like that. Made an impression on you. The credit thing too. You know, there's something there that like, because people I'm sure could see the headlines, they Google your name, they see the success, all the things, the house in Vale, all that. But deep down, you actually give. And it's really cool to hear it.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, to me, honestly, making money was the worst thing that ever happened to me, for sure. But yeah, I really do care. I really tried to, I found faith, and that is safe for me. But yeah, I mean, I was growing up in Ardmore. I had the best friends in the world, and we loved each other. Love is the greatest of all things, right? I've been fortunate to love big, live big. You know, and also, like we said, you know, death and divorce shaped my life.
Yeah.
You know, there was so many young people that died that I went to school with. It's a really tragedy that I don't know that many other people have experienced. And like, you know, I buried one of my best. Yeah. Yeah, I
Do you get back home much?
As much as I can. And when I was in first grade, I was like so introverted. And then my best friend was so introverted that her teacher called her parents to put us together.
Oh, that's great. You guys could rub off on each other. You help each other out.
Yeah, so his name's Chad Brown, and
that's awesome.
He and his dad Wayne started a very successful trucking company that they sold a couple years back. But Chad and I split tickets at OU, and we talk all the time. My mom's got a houseboat on Lake Murray. You know, my company, the mobile home company, is called Good Living. I love McConaughey and LIVIN. I almost didn't put the G on it, but he's about the only thing in Texas I like. But yeah, that houseboat, it's like a floating mobile home on Lake Murray. That's probably my favorite place to go. Love Lake Murray.
What places you've been in the world? Murray is home.
Man, cruising around on a boat, you know, it's especially, you know, there's days out there with my brother and my dad where the only time we would connect is completely nonverbal. Yeah. But I love to slalom water ski, and when the lake was perfect, dude, you know, you feel like C.S. Lewis talks a lot about like the intersection of time and eternity, and like being on this calm lake, pretty special.
So you see this, I mean, in the headlines, this Devon move as, you know, you see the industry that you're in, you can see the impact that a lot of people like myself, maybe people listening that aren't in that world and haven't been in that profession and grown up around it, you know, for me, yeah, it's not great, but then I don't have any tangible, you have all the experience and have seen the families, whatever it is, the jobs created, not created, about this announcement a couple of weeks ago that Devon's going to Houston. Yeah. I mean, back to you said things kept a secret right till the end. You guys, I assume, had no idea until it was announced like everybody else? Yeah, no, I was surprised. I knew that Coterra, who used to be Cimarex, also company with deep Oklahoma roots. I knew they were for sale. Yeah.
I wasn't yet in the business. I would have loved to own it. These are like $25 billion companies. My capacity to raise capital, is, I think InCap would invest maybe $1 billion in me. And that's sort of, as big as a guy like me qualifies for. Even some of the greatest landman, Cody Campbell, John Sellers, the Texas Tech guys, there's a couple billion, for them. But taking a $25 billion company that's like owned by Wall Street, essentially, it's really audacious. I would love to own that business though. But yeah, I knew it was for sale. I was completely shocked. I mean, Devin spent $750 million on that building, and they built, I mean, it completely dominates our skyline.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's like a big middle finger.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit like that's how they're treating it. Larry Nichols, created Devon, and it's been here for 40 years. And yeah, I'm sad to see it leave. I think it's senseless. I've been raising some hell about it, and on LinkedIn and down in Houston, I probably went too far, probably losing some credibility. But to me, the combination of those two businesses makes a lot of sense. In oil and gas, to me, the story is consolidation, and there's not going to be a lot of new exploration, in my opinion. And I've watched it for a long time. So to me, it's about consolidation. It's about stewardship and taking care of it. And then it's about it's about AI. AI is the most powerful tool I've ever seen. We've got a 2-person oil and gas shop, and then I've got a controller that works between the oil and gas and real estate. I don't hardly need anybody else.
It's scary, right? But
It's
it's
very
great,
scary.
but it's scary too.
It's very scary.
Yeah.
So these two businesses need a fraction of the people that they have. And so why the story is to move makes no sense to me. And as a real estate guy, doesn't make sense. As a land guy, those are the things I know how to do well. The combination of them, I think it makes sense. And from just generally, there needs to be less publicly traded oil companies, and they need to consolidate. They need to have shared resources. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that doesn't make sense to me. And yeah, the move pissed me off.
Yeah.
They were true Oklahoma. Oklahoma was really good to them. They're going to sell that building maybe for fraction, for pennies on the dollar. And the ripple effects of Oklahoma City are going to be horrible. You don't lose, your largest company, and you don't feel that. There's so many good people that work in that building that I know firsthand. And I know they're saying they're keeping them here, but come on.
Yeah. Well, and based on the history and what you've seen in the industry of companies moving and selling and writings on the wall for you, you've seen it before, right?
Totally. And people can live wherever, especially the executives.
Yeah.
They can live wherever the heck they want. I mean, I still see, the Cimarex Coterra guys. They used to be in Denver. And, Denver's a great place to live. And there's some craziness that, it was kind of a hard place to raise kids. But yeah, I mean, the weather's fantastic. And so these execs can live wherever.
Yeah.
Their job is to, make it happen. And to, it's at the end of the day, man, it's like asset optimization, making money on the buy. And, business pretty simple. These companies, they get more complicated, and then people get really entrenched, and then it's just it's unclear as to why the move, and then the people. These companies makes like $7 to $8 billion a year, which is staggering. And for a real estate guy, that's why I'm back. For you have $25 billion in real estate, and it's not making that type of cash flow. It's making maybe 10%.
Yeah.
More like, it's more like whatever the cap rate is. And, to me, oil and gas is a real estate business as well. I think all this thing has got way overcomplicated. I think the sad reality is that, there's going to be a fraction of that workforce. I support consolidation, and I own stock in both companies. I've put together a position that's sizable. That is my energy investment right now, is my investment in both of those companies.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see them do it right.
Yeah. does doing it right mean staying here? Like, I mean, are they gone? Like, is it that's the ship has sailed, but what is there to be done?
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, to me, they're staying here. Why is that the priority?
Yeah.
Like for anyone that's ever moved, but that's not an executive, or has children that can't afford to keep their children at home and fly back and forth in a private jet. Like that's disruptive. These companies need to be smashed together. And you're going to have to align mission, vision, values, and you're going to have to deal with AI. You're going to have to deal with a lot of your friends going away. I move into Houston and in a totally brand new place. There's no business case for me. I think I don't like it one bit. I mean, to me, it's like these two companies are overweight right now and they need to get on a diet. And they're going to have some really, really tough love. But you're going to push together assets, and then you need to align on mission, vision, values. I'm a big, for anybody that's like trying to organize their business, there's a book called Traction. Sat on my shelves for 10 years. It's brutal read. Gino Wickman.
Okay.
The first book I would read is called Rocket Fuel, but he has a program called EOS. It's called the Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's just tools to run your business, how to organize it. And it's fantastic. But there's two main people in an EOS system. It's a visionary and it's an integrator. And I'm like a textbook visionary. I'm a dreamer. And I've sat in somewhat an integrator role. Like I like the vision of building a system and a machine and a process. But to me, that business needs Devin and Kotera. They need to focus on their assets. The synergies that they've outlined in this thing are going to be very hard to achieve. I know their Permian position very well. I put together part of it. They're not it's not like a lay down hand in glove fit. There's so much land work that's going to happen to really integrate that. And that needs to be the focus, not moving to Houston.
Yeah. I can see how it's frustrating.
It makes me super mad.
Yeah.
Because it's about the assets. It's about taking care of the assets. And that needs to be the sole focus. Not where you live. Doesn't matter where you live. And in today's age, it does not matter at all. They have an opportunity and platform to be, a few $100 billion asset company and acquire, some truly great assets. Like if I had that platform, what I would love to see is the combination of Expand, Devin, and Kotera, and you put them all in the tower, and then you have an AI, a very, very flat organization. Expand and Kotera's Marcellus position would probably be the best asset in the lower 48. It's world class. And then that combination would be amazing. So price PE ratio, I think is for me is, price to earnings, for a value driven guy, I think it's a very important metric. Devin and Kotera have a 10 and Expand has a 14. A guy named Nick Delasso just got fired. He was the CEO of Expand. He's a finance guy. He's got a 14, and the higher the number, the better. And so, Nick Delasso is a guy that would be perfect to run a giant consolidating vehicle. I've tried to make friends with him recently, and he's certainly friend of a friend. That sort of classic visionary integrator. Like he is a proven integrator, and he's been proven to optimize value of assets and to run a very good business. The more I look at Expand, the more respect I have for that business. And, Harold is obviously doing it very well at Continental. I had the good fortune of being partners with them early in my career. I got to know Jeff Hume over there very well. Harold's right hand. Truly one of the best men I've ever met.
It's the ripples are far and wide, right? And there's some great people here, as we talked about, and Oklahoma breeds a lot of great people.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma would be okay.
Yeah.
But it's I've just seen it over and over. And when you live close to Red River, you see just the resources continue to go over. And, all your buddies moving to Dallas. With our second company, most of it was on university lands. And so University Lands is like what Texas was say. Texas merged with the United States. Like the reason I don't like him is because they're awesome. They merged with the United States.
Yeah.
And they negotiated a really sweet deal.
Yeah.
They have at least 3 times the amount of shoreline, and they set aside millions of acres in West Texas. Millions that are right in the Permian. The University Lands makes $1 billion a year in revenue, and that goes 2/3 to UT and 1/3 to Texas A&M.
Wow.
And the joke is that the Aggies chose first. Yeah. Aggies, especially with the UT guys. I mean, there's a lot of jokes for sure. I have a lot of Aggie friends. Yeah, a lot of core guys. Their petroleum engineering school is really world class. There's a guy named BP Huddleston there. You know, it's just a legend. And I had a chance to hear him talk a few times. And then I grew up in the oil business with a bunch of Aggies. BP Huddleston, though, is a dude. You know, he's one of those like legendary type people that shares his knowledge. At OU, like we're trying to get those same type of people. You know, we got Randall Stevenson there now. Randall's actually paying to remake OU. I don't know if you know him, but
I don't know.
Yeah, so Randall Stevenson was CEO of AT&T for like 13 years, and then he's on Walmart's board. Like this guy's like buddies with Jeff Bezos and stuff. You know, I've only had a couple of conversations with him. We text every now and then. Yeah, he came in and sort of President Harris asked him to come in and to shepherd in, you know, the college football is now a professional sport.
It's a professional sport. Yeah.
And I love it, man.
Yeah.
Like everyone hates it. I freaking love it.
I mean, it always has been. It's just now it's legal, right?
Well, it's legal and the players get paid and they should get paid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I see how much work they do. And I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just had Eddie Radosevich on the show, and we talked a lot about the NIL stuff and how that, you know, because he's obviously been at Sooner Scoop and been around it for years and years and years pre-NIL.
True take. Does he like it better?
Yeah. I mean, he's seen it. It's about, and I said this quote in that.
Is he the most famous person in Oklahoma? Goodness.
I mean, in OU sports, probably. Yeah. He's great. He's a riot to be around. He's the same person.
Yeah,
he's awesome.
Super funny.
Yeah, no, he's great. We had a really good chat, just kind of catching up about it. And obviously last season, you know, didn't start off great, and then it finished pretty well. But you know, with the way that SEC coming in means more media advertising, more dollars for the city, and everything like that. You know, and then obviously the stadium's going to have a little work done to it, which I'm sure has caused ruffled a few feathers, but
I don't like it.
He referenced it happened, I guess, a while back, and so it progression, whatever it is. But let's talk about the school then. I mean, for you, as someone who's on the board of business, and you want a mentor and a donor and all the things, you know, is there an amount of money that you would happily give to have OU win a national championship?
For sure.
Yeah. It's like a lot of donors. Like there is that's happening now in NIL, right? Like every school's got that. But now you're competing with every other school's.
Yeah. You know,
too.
I don't feel like I've done a good job giving to Seoul. I've done a good job giving to the university as a whole. And I struggle with it a bit, like with as a Christian, and like where, you know, I think my local church is like where I want to give the most. I also struggle with like how much to give when. And, you know, my goal for a long time was I'm embarrassed to say this, was to make $1 billion and give it all away. And I sort of felt like I needed to hold it to grow it. But, you know, I'm trying to let go of that. It's like owning a position in Devon and Coterra. I wish I had more to put into it to have a bigger voice. And, you know, I've got enough to be meaningful, but is it a big enough voice to influence thinking? You know, I don't know. You know, it's probably going to take more. People don't like to ruffle feathers.
No one likes change here.
Nobody likes change.
I figured that out too. Yeah, no one likes change. Have you read Die with Zero?
What's that?
Have you read the book Die with Zero?
No.
It's a good book. Talks a lot about money and giving your kids money while they're old enough to see it and making an impact. And
well, it ain't a gift.
Yeah. It's a short book.
I really struggle with like that. Like I set aside, you know, a trust for my kids. That's what they'll get. And then I've given the trustees a lot of latitude. as to how to do that, and I hope they do it well. But yeah, giving people money is not a gift.
Yeah.
It's not, it's like, and the Bible talks about it a lot. Yeah, I mean, it's not ours, and you can't take it with you. And the more time you spend like obsessing over it, the more lost you get.
What's your next few months look like? What's the I guess few months into this year look like? Let's finish with that. Got any big predictions?
I mean, I told you my view on AI.
Yeah.
It's already changed everything. It's just like how quickly it responds. We're actively pivoting away from the park business into energy. But I'm also like, I have always built, houses, and, I'll continue to do that. It's a scary time. People are scared. And they have good reason to be. I'm too. I'm very scared. Every day is under, we're under political pressure. We're under social pressure and climate pressure. I mean, everything is changing. I'm going to lean into God and pray, for good guidance there. My children are at an interesting time in their lives. I feel, I got a few more months for my daughter's driving. And so I'm soaking that up and working as hard as I can to relate to a teen daughter. Yeah. And it's taught me a lot about women. I talked about divorce. I mean, I'm about to be divorced again, 2-time loser, and have hopefully learned a lot of lessons in that. Trying to merge families, the hardest thing I've ever done in my career. I said that
yeah. Well,
that ain't it.
Not even close.
No,
Yeah.
You try to merge a family, that's 24/7, 365, and it's super hard. But I think we're parting in a pretty good way, man. It's for people that are in church and you experience divorce, and it just the ripple effects are really brutal.
Yeah.
So it's I hope it snows in Colorado. And I get a little bit of skiing in. I'm excited. Being back in the oil business has been fun. And I'm going to try to get my hands on something. I think the whole world is going to be.
Yeah.
And I don't understand Trump. I understand that he's going to say something every day that's going to throw people for a loop. And so, things are going to be unpredictable. But yeah, I want to get my hands on some assets. I want to, continue to invest in things I care about, including this state. I've been playing small ball, and I'm ready to get back in the bigger leagues.
Yeah. Awesome. Finish up with some fun, quick fire questions, just because a light way to finish. What's your Brahms order for ice cream?
So Brahms is probably my favorite restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, I go double patty. I ask for extra onions and ketchup. I love that burger, man. And then I did this is stuff I was stealing from my mom. She does a hot fudge sundae with nuts, hot fudge malt, and that is really, really good. It's very decadent, but really good. And then we do you have to ask a limeade, but instead of Sprite, I do it with soda water, and I find that to be a really nice, refreshing drink. I do like their little crinkle fries too.
Yeah.
The peppermint ice cream also
good.
Underrated.
Yeah.
What about you? What do you do?
So if it's ice cream, it's double dip waffle cone. It's birthday cake on the bottom, chocolate almond on top.
Yeah.
Which is like, I just like to get that chocolate.
That's
fix.
just some weird UK stuff right there.
Yeah, we don't have birthday cake ice cream back home, and so I had to fit that one in there. Not really. I mean, we have spoiled for options here for food, and
it's good Mexican food.
Yeah, some great food here. So it's not really, I never really eat at Brahms. It's always an ice cream.
Yeah, my kids, every time we land, that's the first place stop, man.
That is the cool part about going away and then coming back, is that you miss Brahms, right?
Yeah.
And then you come back.
You know what else I like is Taco Bueno.
Yeah.
Yeah, big Taco Bueno fan.
I had my college assistant golf coach was a big South African guy, rugby looking player, had the smoothest golf swing ever. And after many nights out, we'd go to Taco Bueno, but he would call it Taco Bueno in his South African accent at 3:00 in the morning after a lot of drinks. It was probably one of the funniest things ever to us.
Yeah. There's a lot of South Africans here.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is about South Africans in Oklahoma, but there's a bunch, and we get along well.
Yeah, they're similar people. Do you have a favorite OU memory?
Oh, Lord, man.
I mean, at school and then post?
Whew. OU was a dream to me, man.
Mm.
Like, you can't have more fun than we had. It was so special. I'd like to say I was at the national championship or and I couldn't afford it. I watched it on TV. I sold every one of my OU Texas tickets. It paid for my weekends, and it taught me a lot about life. The people I met there just, changed my life for the better and continue to.
Awesome. Well, mate, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, totally, man.
Thanks for sharing some stories, taking you out of your comfort zone a little bit,
Oh,
putting lights on you, putting a microphone in front of your face.
Yeah.
If people listening, either young entrepreneurs want to reach out, ask questions, or anyone just, is there an email or something we can send them to reach out and be a mentor or something?
I've started, using LinkedIn more, which my kids are like, what?
What is LinkedIn? Yeah.
And so I'm trying to get a little bit better on that. I would say LinkedIn for now. Connect with me there.
Great.
I really posted a lot of my thoughts about, Devin and Kotera there. And so I would say start there. And, if you're really wanting to get, mentorship and Soul Mission, we're looking for great business minded people, to work with our football players. And it's not a charity thing. Like, we make our guys work, they learn, and dude, it's life giving. Mentoring folks is just awesome. Yeah. I mean, get involved with the church, get involved with OU. Like I said, I do my best to respond when people reach out, and I've had a lot of conversations with folks, and so I try to be available.
Yeah. We'll finish with this. Do you have a life verse or motto that you stick by?
Oh, I gave you some of them. I wouldn't say I have a motto. I like to have I try to make light of a lot of things. And then, certainly as I get more religious, I'm just so thankful for God's grace, second chances, forgiveness. So, try to remember that every day. It's not about what we do. It's about what he did for us, and really try to be thankful for that.
Yeah. Great way to finish. People listening, we'll catch you next episode. Cheers. Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at OklahomaHOF. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my 2 pups. So go to thedoghouseokc.com and follow them on Instagram at thedoghouseokc, and hopefully our pups will run into each other.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.